welcome to Oakridge Outdoors Radio with Craig Robbins. I'm your host, Craig Robbins. How does that sound? Pretty good, you know, kind of flows, kind of getting it so it flows together. The first couple opening lines so far, you know, you folks seem to be liking stuff, getting a lot of emails from everybody. We have got an exciting show coming for y'all this week, and we're going to again talk to a dear old friend of mine. We talked to him way back when, last year, one of the first episodes we did that we aired here on 107.9, and his name is Dan Small. Since then, Dan has probably gotten one of the highest honors given to anyone in the outdoor industry. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dan Small is a 2024 inductee, Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Dan is one of only a handful of inductees this 2024 year, and what is so exciting is not only I've been a friend of Dan's for many, many years, have had a chance to hunt and fish with Dan, which we'll talk more about that, but Dan is actually a Western New York native, born, raised right here in Western New York. And we're going to be talking to Dan. It's going to be a busy show. And also, after we talk to Dan, we're going to be doing a little bit about Sportsman's Calendar and giving you some fishing hotline updates. So stay tuned as we visit with my old friend, 2024 Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame inductee, Dan Small. Folks, welcome to Oakridge Outdoors Radio. Today we have a special guest, Dan Small from Wisconsin. Now, I've known Dan for a long time, but there's a lot about Dan that a lot of folks don't know. For example, he's in his 40th year. I think it's almost 40 years. I'm sure Dan will correct me as the show goes on, but it's pretty doggone close to 40 years with Outdoor Wisconsin. Public television, TV show. Absolutely fantastic show. Traveling all throughout Wisconsin for 40 years. And I've done television. A lot of things have changed in 40 years. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Dan also produces Outdoors Radio. And I don't even know how long he's been doing that. He's in dozens of radio stations across Wisconsin. He also is the contributing editor for the Western Outdoors News. But what we really want to talk about today is something that's real exciting. Is Dan is going to be a 2024 inductee to the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Welcome to Oakridge Outdoors, Dan. How you doing today, bud?
Doing well, Craig. Thank you for that introduction. And yeah, you were right about TV. 40 years, although the last 3+ years we have not been in production. Because of COVID, they are running past episodes. I guess the genteel word for it is encore episodes, but we know them as reruns.
Yeah,
but it's still on the air for sure.
That's absolutely amazing. I'll tell you what, a lot of things have changed. You know, we have a lot to go over, and you and I have known each other for a long time, and we've shared turkey blinds together and fishing boats together and riverbanks together. But today I really want to try to, if we can, and I know I'm not going to be able to scratch the surface of your induction to the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Class of 2024. Let me be not the first, but one of many to congratulate you, my dear friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've gotten a few calls and emails and Facebook messages and posts from folks saying congratulations, and it's quite an honor. Absolutely is.
Oh, that's an amazing honor, and I've had an opportunity to interview some of the other inductees over the years, and probably not one that I've known as well as I have you. But what makes your story a little bit more, interesting? While Wisconsin, you've called home for a long time. I don't know how many decades, 4 or 5 decades now. You are actually a Western New York guy, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was born in North Tonawanda at the Graf Hospital, which I understand is still there. I think every one of my siblings, except maybe my sister, who was much younger than I am, And cousins, we're all from originally North Tonawanda. At least that's where we were born. And I spent the first 6 years or so of my life in Tonawanda, where my dad was, where he grew up with his dad. And people may recognize the name Clint Small. His name is on the football stadium at Tonawanda High School. He was the football coach for many, many years there. He was my dad's older brother, and the two of them grew up on Bauk Street, if anybody knows where that is, just off of Niagara, within a long flyball of the Niagara River, where my dad did a lot of fishing. And he told me back when he was younger, and I'd never got anybody to verify this, but I took his word for it. He told me he used to swim the river when he, when he was in high school. Now, there's a good current there, and we're talking about the upper river, of course, above the falls, but I don't know if he was just joshing me or what. We used to spend a lot of time at a beach on Beaver Island, actually, I think it was, near Grand Island or off of Grand Island, somewhere over there. And I fished the river a lot when I was a kid. So, early years in Tonawanda, and then my dad became the high school principal at Clarence, and I grew up there. I was there from second grade until I graduated from high school.
So you are true Western New York young man, born and bred.
Oh, yeah.
So you pretty much cut your teeth.
I spent a lot of time fishing and hunting all over the southern tier and the Niagara frontier. So I used to know those streams pretty well and the woods, but everything has changed in the years since I left. I have fished the Cattaraugus a couple times since I left, and I think one of the events that you and I were at together on Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers event, we got into some nice steelhead there one time.
Yes, we did. We definitely have. Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate, folks, to know Dan for quite a few years now. We actually shared, a couple, 3, 4 turkey blinds together in Western New York. So finally was able to, after, I don't know, was it 2 attempts or 3 attempts it took me to get you on a Stock County longbeard.
Yeah, well, I think of you all the time, Craig, because the, whatever you call the wallpaper on your phone, when your phone lights up, that image is me and that limb hanger turkey that you called in for me on the hunt, where we didn't double because I shot one and then they were still hanging around, and you said, I said, here, why don't you take my gun and you shoot one? So we got 2 birds that day.
I'll tell you what, folks, if you really want to go back in time, go back and Oakridge Outdoors and check out the TV show on backroadsoutdoors.com, and just go in and put Dan Small in, and you'll see that hunt. It was an amazing turkey hunt. I mean, it was just one of those days. It was we worked and we waited a long time for those particular birds. I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 different times. Dan would call me. He says, "I'm coming to New York. Can you get me in?" I'm like, okay, I got a day here, And next year I get a phone call, and it would rain or something insane would happen. That particular morning, I think you literally had like 5 hours before you were heading out, going back home or something, and
something like that.
It was really a magical time. But those are just some of the hunts that that Dan's experienced, not only in New York but Wisconsin. You called home, and to be honored with the 2024 class of freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. It's absolutely astounding, and it really shows up my spine just to talk about it and think about all your years that you have spent as a writer, as a radio show host, a television show host, and giving back to Wisconsin and the folks of Wisconsin and sharing your adventures. It's just amazing.
Well, it has been quite a ride for sure, and the induction ceremony, which typically is held, they do a half a dozen inductees every year. They choose about six or 8 people every year, and they have an induction ceremony in the home state or near the home state of each inductee. And mine's going to be at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel Sports Show in March, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. Emmett Brown, in fact, I'm talking to him this week about details of that, but he is the director of the Hall of Fame, of course, and he will be there with a booth, and they're going to do my induction ceremony right there on the stage that now the show people are naming after me. I think, I don't know. I don't know how I can top that one, but it's going to be quite an honor, quite an event. My brother Mike, whom you've met, I think, he's planned to come from North Carolina, where he lives now, to spend a couple days with me at the show, and he's going to do a muskie fly fishing seminar, and he will be there for the induction, and we're having a fundraiser the night before the show opens, which is going to be a fundraiser for Mark LaBarbera's Outdoor Heritage Education Center, which I know you know Mark.
Yes.
And he does a lot for conservation and kids here in Wisconsin and throughout the Midwest, actually. And it's a fundraiser for his organization, and also a toast/roast of me. And I told my sister about this, and she said, "Oh, be careful what you wish for." Because I'm sure I'm going to hear a few stories that night.
Well, I'm sure you will, and it's going to be an exciting time for everybody in attendance, and it's so great that your brother obviously has a chance to be there with you. I've talked about it and how much family means, and how you've always hunted with your dad and fished with your dad and your brothers and such, and even to this day. I mean, I actually I think we turkey hunted one time with your nephew. Does that sound right?
No, it was my son.
With your son.
Yep.
Okay. With your son. All right. And it was a nice looking young man. It was quite a few years ago. So it's back when you and I could hike across those fields pretty quick first thing in the morning when we didn't quite make it on time. So,
well, on one of those hunts, he slept in the tent. I know.
Yes, I know he did. I'm going to put you over here. No problem. I'm going to crash over here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that was great.
Who hasn't fallen asleep in a turkey blind, though?
There is nothing better in the spring morning to fall asleep. Listen, talk to us a little bit about, you talked about kind of the hiatus you've been on with Wisconsin Outdoors, but talk to us a little bit about how many years has it been? Has it been over 20 years now for the radio show?
It's we're starting our 19th season. Yep. We launched in the middle of 2006, and this is season number 19. I changed the numbers of the shows just to keep track of them at the first of the year. So show 1901 is in the books, and 1902 this weekend, and we'll go on from there.
I know.
So yeah,
it's absolutely amazing.
That a while too.
It's absolutely amazing, and what you've done in not only broadcast. I mean, and most folks, obviously, the broadcast time between the television show and your radio, but as an outdoor writer, I mean, you've literally written for everybody. Am I correct?
Well, most of the major publications and regionals here in Wisconsin, I write for Wisconsin Outdoor News, and once in a while my stories get into the New York and Pennsylvania Outdoor News editions because they're all owned by the same publisher. But before that, back when there were slick paper magazines, now most of them have become digital. I wrote for Outdoor Life and Sports Afield for a number of years. Depending on who was the editor, as you know, Craig, and a lot of listeners probably don't know this, but when editors change, a new editor comes in, he may bring in a new stable of writers.
Everything changes.
You got to rebuild those relationships all over again. But those two, and then Peterson's Hunting and Fishing magazines, and Game and Fish publications, and a lot more that are lesser known. But those are the big ones.
And it's got to be really special to write for a publication that you grew up reading. You had the opportunity to read some of the great outdoor writers and Peterson's and Outdoor Life, and then to be able to have a chance to go out and actually have something printed in that publication. It's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
It is, and my very first outdoor story that got published was in Outdoor Life, and that was back in 1972. And I just had this incredible deer hunt where I thought I missed him. It turns out I had nicked this buck in the morning, and this was on a New York State hunt, just outside of Albany, where I used to live, in the town of Delmar. People over that way some of your listeners may know where that is, but anyway, I took a shot at this buck, and he ran off, and I kind of knew where he went. There's a ledge there, and I went back to work and met my wife for lunch, and she said, "You go back, and you'll get that buck this afternoon." And I thought, yeah, right. Well, I did go back, and I sat up on that ledge, and to make the story short, this deer comes out, and I shot it. And when I skinned him later, he had an extra hole, and it was just above the spine. I took a shot at him as he ran past me, which is not something I recommend to anybody. I've done it a few times, and usually it turns out bad. And this time I had nicked that deer, and if it had been 2 inches, 3 inches lower, he'd have dropped in his tracks, and I probably would never have written the story, and who knows where I'd be today. But I got a story out of it that the editors called the reenactment. I think I called it Second Chance Buck, but they liked the reenactment better, and that got me started. And then I kept writing after that.
Yeah, it's absolutely. There are folks. There are very few people in our industry in outdoor communications that have literally been there, done that, and have experienced just about everything you could in the outdoor industry in the continental United States. And I'm not talking, some folks are just specific to like turkey hunting. Dan loves a turkey hunt. I love turkey hunt. Or some folks are specific to deer hunting, or some folks are specific to muskie fishing, or fly fishing, or walleye fishing, or bass fishing. And one thing I can tell you about Dan is, he knows it all. I mean, there isn't too much he hasn't seen or he hasn't experienced when it comes to hunting or fishing in the United States. I mean, he's been there, done that. And I, through the Outdoor Writers Association of America, OWAA, and then through Aglow. The Glow is really kind of where we really connected. And the Great Lakes Outdoor Writers Association, we have a chance to go to different places throughout this great country of ours and experience some of the most beautiful hunting and fishing experiences that you ever can imagine. And I remember I think you were sitting there the one particular day, and I was one of my first conferences, and it was kind of a midday break, and just talk about going to a conference, or a Glow conference, or OWA, or even a statewide conference like New York State Outdoor Writers Association or Wisconsin Outdoor Writers Association. And I think we were at a Glow conference. I don't even remember where we were. And here I am, I'm pretty green, and I'm kind of hanging with Dan because he kind of knows the ropes a little bit. And I'm pretty sure you were there when this fellow walked in with a cowboy hat on. Uh-huh. And he walks over and just sits down and starts talking about this hunt that he was in Maine. And he was just on his way back home, And I'm looking, and I'm really in awe. And I've met a lot of different people in the industry before, but it was just like, hey, we'll just sit down and have a drink. And here we are having a drink with all these really folks that are, on the ground doing the work, and their job happens to be to communicate with folks about their hunting or fishing adventures through the print media, through broadcast, and now, through digital. And it's absolutely amazing. Some of the stories and some of the folks that we've traded over the years.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'm wondering. I'm trying to remember that incident myself. That might have been Jim Zumbo.
It was Zumbo. He'd come over and he smacked you on the back. It was Zumbo.
I had an experience like that, and talk about meeting the people who, or reading their work and then writing for the same publications. But before, I was in my 20s, so I had just started writing, and I was a member, and I still am a member of the Rough Grouse Society and the Wild Turkey Federation. But the national convention, they used to move them around at that time, of the Rough Grouse Society was held in Wisconsin, in central Wisconsin. So I came down from up north where I lived, and I got to hunt with some people. We call them high rollers in the banquet business. Guys who carry Belgian Browning over and unders, and don't bat an eye about dropping $300-400 in raffle tickets at a banquet and so on. But at one dinner, I'm sitting down, and there's an empty seat next to me because I didn't know anybody there. And this guy comes in and he sits down, and I look and I go, "Oh my God!" It was Ed Zern, and that's a name you would know, but I don't know how many of your listeners are long enough in the tooth to remember Ed Zern, who used to write the back. I think he called it the Back 40 or Exit Laughing. It was.
Yes.
It was one of those. It was a humor column on the back page of Field and Stream magazine.
Yep.
And this guy comes up to him, and of course, I said hello, and I'm like, "Oh, what do I say next?" And this guy comes up to him with a pewter belt buckle, and he says, "Would you initial my belt buckle?" And Ed takes out a little penknife, and he scratches something in the back of this guy's belt buckle. Well, I was wearing a pewter belt buckle too. That was the time where, cowboys still wear those big buckles, but I had this buckle that has a a fly fisherman on it, and I took it's kind of comes off the belt, so I took my buckle off, and I said, "Ed, would you do that for me?" And he scratched something on the back, and to this day, Craig, I can't tell exactly what he scratched or where, but I got a story out of that many years later, and I called it Ed Zern scratched or autographed my belt buckle or something like that. But that was a highlight of my early career for sure. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, and I really, when I talked to you earlier today, I really wanted to talk. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about sharing stories and different places you've been and things you've seen, and I want to thank you again for everything you've done for the folks in the outdoor industry, not only in the industry, but in your readers, your viewers, your listeners. I mean, you really have, you've done the trifecta, all three of them. It's absolutely amazing. And you're still going. You're still going strong. I don't want to know. I don't care to know.
I'm strong, but I'm still going. Yeah.
I would never ask. But you're still going strong, and there is a glimmer. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm getting there. I'm not quite. We talked earlier. He goes, "You're still working?" I said, "Yeah, I haven't retired yet." He goes, "Really?" And I said, "No, not yet. I'm still working. Still pounding out turkey calls left and right, and still moving stuff around when I got to move it. But that's what I wanted this to be about today. Is I wanted, you're truly a Western New York, born and bred boy that cut his teeth in the woods and of Western New York and caught his first fish. Was it Lake Ontario or Lake Erie caught your first fish?
It would have been Lake Ontario, and I actually I found a photo not too long ago of my dad and me, and I'm probably 3 years old, and I've got this, not even a cane pole, it's just a willow branch. And I've got a bluegill. And then there's another shot of me, and I'm wearing these little shorts that we wore back in those days, and it's probably around diapers. I don't know. But anyway, no, I would have been out of diapers by that age. But anyway, I got a string of bluegills, and Craig, they're about 4 inches long, but there I am looking at these bluegills, and I sent those to the hall too. I don't know if those photos are going to make it, but they got a shot of me with a nice salmon.
Well, I truly, I'm honored to call you a friend, and again, I congratulate you from everybody in Western New York that has ever read anything you've written or listened to anything you've spoke or or seen anything you've been fortunate enough to do for almost 40 years. It's absolutely amazing, and there aren't too many folks around that can say that, that you've been able to do what you've been able to do. And I can tell you folks, there's a lot of people out there that do a lot of really great things, and they kind of walk around kind of all full of themselves, and Dan's not one of them. He is the most approachable individual that you can imagine. So if you happen to see him at a sports show somewhere, stop up and chit chat, and he'll definitely have a story to trade with you. So, Dan, I really appreciate your time. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures of the induction. And you don't get too much snow. You guys are going to get some snow tomorrow, I understand.
I think we're going to get it. Yeah, we have not had anything yet to speak of. A dusting a couple of times, so we're bracing for it.
Well, again, I really appreciate your time, young man, and it's really an honor and a privilege to congratulate you on your 2024 induction to the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Dan Small. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, Craig. It's a great honor, and I really appreciate you having me on your show for sure. And I'll be back in New York sometime this year, and I'll look you up for sure. And I hope to see you at the GLOW conference. That's in Kentucky this year.
And you'll definitely see us in Kentucky this year. We appreciate it.
This week on the Sportsman's Calendar, we've got some exciting things happening down at Carroll Rod and Gun. Just so you remember, the second Tuesday of every month is Carroll Rod and Gun's meeting, just outside of Frewsburg on the old Flu Run Road. You'll see the sign on the right-hand side if you're coming in from Frewsburg. One of the exciting things that's got coming up for this month of January is January 20th, the Wild Game Dinner at Carroll Rod and Gun. It starts at 6 p.m. Give you an opportunity to taste a few different kinds of dishes on different types of game, whether it's a squirrel, small game, rabbit, pheasant, grouse, duck, and of course big game, bear, and white-tailed deer, and always somebody brings something exotic in. We call it exotic here in Western New York, but something like elk or even a brown bear or something else. There's always some interesting things going on during the Wild Game Dinner. So make sure you double check on the Wild Game Dinner coming up on January 20th at 6 p.m. at Carroll Rod and Gun. A lot of things going on with rod and guns this time of year. It's important that you get out to your local rod and gun and have an opportunity to spend some time and get a chance to know some of the folks. And you never know, you may make some new friends. So it's a great time of year to do that. As far as fishing conditions go, the fishing action on the lower Niagara River continues to be good to really good, from Devil's Hole to the Niagara Bar. These are the reports that we received before we've got the snow and the rain and the melt-off that's coming in. So it'll definitely going to have some impact on fishing conditions, especially on the Niagara River and streams and creeks that come off of Lake Erie. The harbor is still wide open in Dunkirk, obviously, because we don't have any ice. So you never know what you're going to catch in the harbor this time of year. Sometimes you may catch some steelhead off the pier, or you catch some smallmouth bass, or some really nice sized perch. So there's a lot of really cool things going on. The tributaries up around Lake Erie, the Cat Creek seems to be running high, even though, here again, these reports came in before we got our weather. But by the time this airs, the second full week of January, a lot of that staining and high water will eventually be moving out, as long as the temperatures stay pretty good, and they're supposed to. We don't have any ice on any inland bodies of water yet, so shoreline fishing up around Chautauqua Lake has been real well. Long Point is a great place to go this time of year, weather permitting. Got open water. You can hike all the way up. You can park right there at Long Point State Park, hike all the way up and around. There's a trail that goes right out to the end of the point, and it's not too hard to find, and see what you can find. Minnows are always a great time, a great bait to use this time of the year. And of course, can never beat a bobber and a night crawler on the backside of that bobber. Also, down in toward the Jamestown area, the docks, the municipal docks in the city of Jamestown, right down at the head of the creek there, where it comes together, comes off Chautauqua Lake. Folks have been down there doing real well with just underneath the bobber with a night crawler and catching some nice sized perch. Water temperature's cooling down. So, again, folks, I really want to congratulate my good friend Dan Small on his induction to the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, class of 2024. And as always, remember to take a child hunting or fishing because they are the future of the great outdoors.